47 children had stopped believing in anything good. Staff Sergeant Daniel Reyes learned this within his first 10 minutes on Rilvan Station, a dying orbital way station that the Galactic Concorde had converted into an orphanage nobody wanted to fund. He had come to deliver medical supplies and ration packs. A simple job: drop the cargo, get a signature, leave. His ship, the Meadowlark, was already warming its engines for the jump back to Earth. But the station made him pause. The heating system wheezed like a sick animal. The lights flickered every few seconds. The recycled air tasted like metal and old sorrow. Daniel had served 3 deployments in the border wars, and he had seen plenty of misery. This place had a different kind of sadness. The quiet kind. The kind that had given up hoping for rescue. Administrator Yali's met him at the cargo bay. She was a Bravani, a species with 6 arms and 4 eyes. All of those eyes looked exhausted. Purple circles hung beneath them like bruises. "Thank you for the delivery," she said. Her voice was flat, practiced. "We appreciate the Concorde's continued support." Daniel looked at the small stack of crates. Medical supplies for 47 children. Ration packs that would last maybe 2 weeks. This is all they sent. This is more than usual. He helped her carry the crates inside. The corridors were narrow and cold. Paint peeled from the walls. Pipes dripped condensation that nobody had bothered to fix. Daniel had grown up poor on Earth, in a small town where money was always tight. But his mother had always kept their home warm. She had always made sure there was enough. This place felt like nobody cared enough to try. They passed a doorway, and Daniel stopped. Inside was a large room filled with beds. 47 beds, crammed together so tightly that there was barely room to walk between them. Most of the beds had thin blankets. Some had no blankets at all. Children of a dozen different species sat on those beds, talking quietly or staring at nothing. "The dormitory," Yali said. "We do our best." Daniel did not know what to say. He had killed enemy soldiers. He had watched friends die. But something about this room made his chest hurt in a way combat never had. A small figure appeared at his knee. Daniel looked down and saw a Cressian child. Cressians were small and covered in soft blue fur. They had large eyes that seemed too big for their faces. This one could not have been older than 5 Earth years. "Are you the red human?" the child asked. Daniel crouched down to meet those enormous eyes. "The red human, the one who brings gifts." From the stories. Before Daniel could respond, Yali's let out a tired sigh. "Pip, we talked about this. But the stories say he comes. He brings presents to children who are good." Daniel looked at Yali's, confused. She gestured for him to follow her away from the door. They stopped in the corridor, where the children could not hear. "Someone uploaded old Earth cultural archives to our station database," Yali's explained. "The children found stories about something called Christmas, and about a human called Santa Claus who brings gifts to children." Daniel understood now, and they think he's real. They want to believe. Yali's rubbed her face with 2 of her hands. "We have tried to explain that these are just human myths, but they keep hoping. Every time a human ship visits, they ask if it is Santa. It breaks my heart." Daniel looked back at the dormitory door. More children had gathered there now. They watched him with wide, hopeful eyes. He turned back to Yali's. "When is Christmas?" "Earth calendar, 23 days from now, according to their calculations." They had been counting. 23 days. Daniel thought about his cargo ship waiting to take him home. He thought about his sister's house in Colorado, where she was probably already putting up decorations. He thought about his nieces tearing open presents by a warm fire. These children had nothing. No families. No homes. No presents. And in 23 days, they would learn once again that nobody was coming to a voice cut through his thoughts. Older. Bitter. Stop telling him about Santa. Santa is not real. Daniel turned. A Bravani teenager stood in the dormitory doorway. She had the same 6 arms as Yali's, but hers were crossed tightly against her chest. Her 4 eyes were hard with anger. "Sally," Yali said softly. "Please." "No." Sally stepped into the corridor. "They need to stop hoping for things that will never happen. Nobody comes for children like us. Nobody cares. The sooner they learn that, the less it will hurt." Behind her, little Pip began to cry. Other children joined him. The sound filled the corridor like a wave of grief. Daniel watched Sally walk away. He watched the younger children weep. He watched Yalis try to comfort them with tired hands that had been doing this alone for far too long. Something shifted in his chest. He did not know what it was. He only knew that it felt like a door opening, like a decision being made somewhere deep inside him, in a place he had forgotten existed. His captain called on the radio. "Reyes, cargo's done. Ready to dust off." Daniel looked at the crying children one more time. "Copy that," he said. "On my way." He walked back to the Meadowlark. He boarded the ship. He watched Rilvan Station grow smaller through the viewport as they pulled away. But he did not stop thinking about 47 beds and a little blue child who believed in Santa Claus. Sleep would not come for Daniel Reyes. The Meadowlark hummed quietly as it traveled through hyperspace. His crewmates had gone to their bunks hours ago. The ship was dark and still. But Daniel lay in his small cabin, staring at the ceiling, seeing only a room full of crying children he had tried to forget. He had told himself it was not his problem. The galaxy was full of sad stories. One soldier could not fix all of them. This was what he repeated in his mind, over and over, hoping the words would eventually feel true. They did not feel true. At T3 in the morning, ship time, Daniel gave up on sleep. He went to the communication station and began searching through the Concord database for information about Rilvan Station. What he found made him sick. The station had been marked for closure 3 times in the past 5 years. Budget cuts, low priority. The children would be split up and sent to various institutions across the galaxy. Daniel read the reports about those institutions. Overcrowded, understaffed. Some of them had investigations pending for neglect. One had been shut down after children died from preventable illness. This was what waited for the orphans of Rilvan Station. Not families, not homes, just different cages scattered across the stars. Daniel closed the database and sat in the dark for a long time. Then he opened a video call to Earth. His sister answered on the 3rd ring. Her face was tired but happy. Behind her, Daniel could see her living room. A Christmas tree glowed in the corner. Paper snowflakes hung from the ceiling. Her 2 daughters were fighting over a box of ornaments. "Danny," she smiled wide. "I thought you were not coming home until after New Year." "I'm not. Ship's taking a different route back." He paused. "Rachel, I need to tell you something." Her smile faded. She knew him too well. She could hear the weight in his voice. "What happened?" Daniel told her everything. The station, the children, the thin blankets, and the broken heating, and the little Cressian named Pip who believed in Santa Claus. He told her about Sally, the teenager who had given up on hope. He told her about the crying that had followed him into hyperspace. Rachel listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she asked a simple question. "So what are you going to do about it?" Daniel laughed. It was not a happy sound. "What can I do? I'm one guy. I have 23 days and no money and a cargo ship full of military rations." "Danny." Rachel leaned closer to the camera. "You have spent 10 years blowing things up for the military. You told me once that you joined to protect people. Have you protected anyone lately?" The question hit him like a punch. "Those kids need someone to show up for them," Rachel continued. "Just once. Just one time when someone actually comes through. Maybe that someone is you." Daniel stared at his sister's face. Behind her, his nieces were now hanging ornaments on the tree, laughing at nothing in particular. "I don't even know where to start," he said. "Start by asking for help. You'd be surprised how many people want to help if someone just asks." They talked for another hour. By the time Daniel ended the call, the sun was rising in Colorado, and he had the beginning of a plan. He went to his captain's quarters and knocked. Captain Yara opened the door, looking irritated. She was a Tessari, tall and covered in gray scales. She did not appreciate being woken early. "This better be important, Sergeant." "I need to take my leave," Daniel said. "All 47 days of it. Starting now." Yara stared at him. "Now? We're in the middle of a transit. You can drop me at Kethel Station. I'll find my own way from there. And your personal cargo allotment? The 200 kilos. I need that too." The captain studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw on his face made her expression soften. "This is about that orphanage, isn't it? The one on Rilvan." Daniel nodded. Yara sighed. But she did not say no. "Fine. I'll drop you at Kethel. You have 47 days to do whatever you're planning. Don't be late getting back to duty. Thank you, Captain. Daniel returned to his cabin and opened his communication device again. He began composing a message. It took him a dozen tries to get the words right. When he finished, he sent it to everyone he knew. His family, his old military unit, his friends from basic training. He posted it on 3 human social networks. He even sent it to the military chaplain who had talked him through his worst nights during the war. The message was simple. I need help. There are 47 orphan children on a forgotten station in the outer territories. They have never had Christmas. They believe in Santa Claus, and everyone keeps telling them he is not real. I have 23 days to prove them wrong. Please, anything you can send. Toys, blankets, money supplies. These kids deserve one good day. Help me give it to them. Daniel sent the message and sat back. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then his device chimed. One response, then another, then 10 more. Then 100 WY morning, his inbox was overflowing. Humanity had heard him, and humanity was answering. The packages came from everywhere. Daniel had rented a small storage unit on Kethel Station, thinking it would be more than enough space. Within 1 week, he needed a second unit. By day 10, he needed a third. Human ships passing through the sector began stopping specifically to drop off boxes. Cargo pilots who had never met Daniel left crates at the station with notes attached. For the Christmas kids. His message had spread farther than he ever imagined. Someone had shared it on a military veterans forum. A journalist had written a story about it. A famous actress had posted about it to her millions of followers. Suddenly, what began as one soldier's desperate request had become something much larger. His mother sent the first package. Inside were bags of flour and sugar, chocolate chips and cinnamon, and a handwritten copy of her gingerbread cookie recipe. There's also a note. Make them with love, Danny. That's the secret ingredient. His old squad pooled their money and sent a message. We put in 2,000 credits. Buy whatever those kids need, Sergeant. And if you need backup, we're there. A toy company donated 50 packages of art supplies. A blanket manufacturer sent 300 blankets in various sizes. A retired Marine who now ran a clothing business sent winter coats and warm socks. A children's book publisher sent boxes of picture books translated into 12 different galactic languages. Daniel's niece sent a package too. Inside was her favorite stuffed animal, a worn rabbit named Flopsy. The note said, for whoever needs a friend most. I have other toys. They don't have any. Daniel sat alone in his storage unit, surrounded by mountains of boxes, and cried for the first time in years. But he had a problem. He was a soldier. He knew how to fight. He knew how to survive. He did not know what alien children actually wanted. The donations were wonderful, but they were human things. Would Cressian children like stuffed animals? Did Bravani teenagers use art supplies? What about the species he had never even heard of? He needed information. Daniel sent a secret message to Administrator Yali's. He explained his plan. He asked her not to tell the children. And then he asked her to send him a list of every child on the station, with their species, their age, and if possible, what they dreamed about. Yali's responded within hours. Her message was short. I have worked at this station for 11 years. No one has ever asked me this question before. Attached was a file. Daniel opened it and began to read. Pip, the little Cressian, wanted a blanket that was only his. He had never owned anything that he did not have to share. Sally, the Bravani teenager, wanted art supplies. Before the war, she had loved to draw. She had not drawn anything in 3 years. Bryn, a quiet amphibian child, wanted a picture book about oceans. He came from a water world and missed it terribly. Vin, a Tessari boy who had not spoken since arriving at the station, had no requests. Yali's noted that he spent most of his time staring out the viewport at the stars. The list went on. 47 children. 47 small dreams. Some wanted toys. Some wanted clothes that fit. One child simply wrote, someone to say goodnight to me. Daniel read every entry. Then he read them again. Then he began sorting through the donations with new purpose. The blankets went into one pile. He found a softest one and set it aside for Pip. The art supplies went to another pile, the best set reserved for Sally. He found an ocean book in the children's literature boxes and marked it for Bryn. For Vin, the silent boy, Daniel chose his niece's stuffed rabbit. He did not know if it was right. He only knew that sometimes, when words would not come, a simple companion could say what needed to be said. 16 days had passed. He had 7 days left. Daniel called his captain. "I need a favor." Yara's scaled face appeared on screen. She looked amused. "Another favor? You're using up your goodwill fast, Sergeant. I have 300 kilos of supplies. My allotment is only 200. I need transport." "Where to?" "Rilvan Station." Christmas Eve. The captain was silent. Then she smiled, showing teeth that could bite through metal. "I've been following your story. The whole crew has. You've become something of a legend among human shipping lanes. I just want to help some kids, which is exactly why you're a legend." Yara nodded. "I'll reroute. We'll be at Kethel in 6 days. Load whatever you've got. The Meadowlark will get you there." "Thank you, Captain. Thank me by making sure those kids have the best Christmas in the galaxy." Daniel ended the call and looked around at the stacks of boxes filling his storage unit. Somewhere in these piles were 47 answered prayers. 47 small dreams about to come true. He had 1 week to wrap them all. Time to get to work. Rilvan Station was dark when the Meadowlark docked on Christmas Eve. Daniel had not come alone. 2 soldiers from his old unit had used their own leave to join him. Corporal Amara Osei was a tall woman with strong arms and a gentle voice. Private First Class Dmitry Volkov was built like a cargo loader and smiled like a child. They had traveled 3 days to reach Kethel Station just to help. "You didn't have to come," Daniel told them when they arrived. Amara shrugged. "You asked for backup. We showed up. That's what squads do." The 3 soldiers spent the entire journey wrapping presents. By the time they reached Rilvan, every gift had a child's name written on it in careful letters. Every box was covered in colorful paper that Daniel's mother had sent from Earth. Administrator Yali's met them at the docking port. Her 4 eyes were red, as if she had been crying. She tried to speak, but could not find words. Instead, she simply led them inside. The children were already in their beds for the sleep cycle. The station was silent except for the hum of machinery and the soft sounds of breathing from the dormitory. Daniel and his team moved quietly through the corridors, carrying boxes in their arms. They transformed the common room first. Dmitri had brought strings of lights, powered by small batteries. He hung them along the walls and ceiling until the entire space glowed warm and golden. Amara set up a makeshift tree in the corner. It was not a real tree. It was a metal frame draped with green fabric. But Daniel had brought decorations, paper stars, hanging ornaments, and pieces of the children's own artwork that Yalis had secretly copied from their files. The presents went under the tree. 47 packages, all different sizes, each one with a name. Daniel saved the biggest task for last. He opened his personal bag and pulled out a red suit. His mother had sewn it by hand. The fabric was not quite right, and the white trim was made from cotton rather than fur. But it was close enough. It was close enough that he put it on in the storage closet while Amara tried not to laugh. "You look ridiculous," she whispered. "I know." Daniel adjusted the hat. "But I'm not doing this for me." They worked for hours. By the time they finished, the common room looked like something from a dream. Warm lights, a decorated tree, piles of presents, plates of gingerbread cookies that Daniel had baked in the station's tiny kitchen that it was nearly perfect. Then Daniel heard a sound from the doorway that he turned. Sally stood there in her sleeping clothes, all 6 arms wrapped around herself. Her 4 eyes were wide, reflecting the golden lights. Neither of them spoke. The silence stretched. Daniel did not know what to say. He had imagined this moment differently. He had imagined being finished before anyone woke up. He had imagined the children seeing everything at once, not one broken teenager catching him in the middle. Sally took a step forward, then another. She moved through the transformed room like she was walking through a hallucination. "You came back," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "You actually came back. I told you I was going to prove something." Daniel pulled off his red hat and held it in his hands. Santa might not be real, but what he represents is real. Kindness is real. Caring about strangers is real. Coming back for people who need you is real. Sally's eyes filled with tears. They spilled down her face, all 4 tracks at once. Nobody comes back. My parents died. My foster family gave me up. Nobody ever comes back. Daniel crossed the room and knelt in front of her. I came back, and I brought help, because you and these other kids deserve one good day. You deserve to know that somewhere in this galaxy, someone thought about you. Sally was shaking now. Years of buried grief were breaking through her armor. Daniel did not touch her. He simply stayed close. He let her feel whatever she needed to feel. Finally, she looked up. Can I help? Help! Finish decorating. The younger ones will wake up soon. Sally wiped her face with 2 of her hands. I want to see their faces. I want to be part of it. Daniel smiled. We could use another pair of hands. Or 3. They worked together until dawn. Sally straightened presents and adjusted ornaments. She arranged the cookies on plates. She helped Amara hang the last string of lights over the dormitory entrance. When everything was ready, they stood back and looked at what they had created. The common room glowed. The tree sparkled. The presents waited in their colorful wrappings. The smell of gingerbread filled the air. It's beautiful, Sally said. It was the first time she had used that word since arriving at the station. From somewhere down the corridor, a child's voice called out. Then another. The younger ones were waking up. Daniel put his red hat back on. Ready? Sally smiled. It was small and fragile, but it was real. Ready? They waited. And when the first child appeared in the doorway, eyes wide with wonder, Daniel knew that every sleepless night and every spent credit had been worth it. Christmas had come to Rilvan Station. Pip screamed so loud that everyone thought there was an emergency. The little Cressian had woken early, as young children always do. He had wandered out of the dormitory half asleep, probably looking for the bathroom. But instead of finding the usual dark corridor, he found a wonderland of lights and colors and wrapped presents. His scream brought the others running. Children poured out of the dormitory in a wave of fur and scales and feathers. They stopped at the entrance, piling into each other, all of them staring with mouths open. For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the soft hum of the lights that Dimitri had hung. Then Pip saw Daniel. Daniel sat in a chair near the tree, wearing his red suit and white trimmed hat. He had practiced what to say. He had prepared a little speech about Christmas and kindness and believing in good things. But when he opened his mouth, all that came out was a rough ho ho ho. It was enough. Santa. Pip launched himself across the room like a tiny blue missile. He hit Daniel's chest so hard that the chair nearly tipped over. Santa came. Santa is real. The dam broke. Children rushed forward, surrounding Daniel, touching his red suit, asking 1,000 questions at once. Are you really Santa? Did you come from Earth? How did you fit down the chimney when we don't have a chimney? Did you bring presents? Are the presents for us? Really for us? Daniel laughed. It was not the polished laugh of a department store Santa. It was the surprised, overwhelmed laugh of a soldier who had never been good with kids, but was trying anyway. One at a time, he said. Yes, I brought presents. Yes, they're for you. And no, I didn't use a chimney. I used a spaceship. The gift-giving took hours. Daniel called each child by name. He knew their names because he had studied the list from Yali's until he could recite it from memory. Each child came forward. Each child received a package with their name on it. Each child opened their gift while the others watched. Pip unwrapped his blanket first. It was the softest one Daniel had found, deep blue like Pip's fur. The little Cressian pressed his face into it and made a sound that might have been crying or might have been the happiest noise a child could make. Then he wrapped himself in the blanket completely, until only his eyes peeked out. He did not take it off for the rest of the day. Bryn, the amphibian child who missed his ocean homeworld, received a picture book filled with images of water. Blue depths, swimming creatures, coral forests. He sat in a corner and turned pages slowly, tracing the pictures with webbed fingers. It looks like home, he whispered. It looks exactly like home. Sally did not come forward when her name was called. She stayed at the edge of the room, arms crossed, as if she was afraid to want something. Daniel walked to her instead. He held out a box wrapped in purple paper. This one is for you. Her hands shook as she took it. She opened the box slowly, carefully, like she expected it to disappear. Inside was a complete art kit. Pencils in every color, brushes, paints, a sketchbook with thick, creamy pages. Sally stared at the supplies for a long time. Then she looked up at Daniel with tears streaming down her face. "I used to draw," she said, "before everything." "I know." Daniel smiled. "Maybe you can start again." By afternoon, the common room was a mess of torn wrapping paper and happy children. Amara was teaching a group of young ones how to play a clapping game from Earth. Dimitri was giving piggyback rides to anyone who asked. Administrator Yali stood in the doorway, watching it all, her 6 hands pressed against her chest. Daniel found her there. "Is this normal for humans?" she asked. "Giving so much to strangers." "Yeah." Daniel watched Pip chase another child while clutching his blanket. "This is pretty much what we do." One child had not come forward for a present. Then, the Tessari boy who had not spoken in 8 months, sat alone by the viewport. He watched the stars instead of the celebration. Daniel picked up the last package and crossed the room. He sat down next to Vin, leaving space between them. "This one is for you," Daniel said quietly. Vin did not look at him. His gray scales reflected the starlight. Daniel set the package beside him and waited. Minutes passed. Finally, Vin reached out and pulled the box into his lap. He opened it without expression. Inside was a stuffed rabbit. Worn, well-loved. Flopsy, from Daniel's niece. Vin stared at the rabbit. His hands trembled. Slowly, carefully, he lifted it from the box and held it against his chest. Then he turned to Daniel. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Vin wrapped his arms around Daniel and hugged him tight. His thin body shook with silent sobs. And then for the first time in 8 months, Vin spoke. "Thank you," he whispered. Daniel held him close and let his own tears fall. "Merry Christmas," he said. 1 year later, Rilvan Station was a different place. The heating system worked now. The lights no longer flickered. The walls had been repainted in warm colors chosen by the children themselves. The dormitory had been expanded into proper rooms, with 2 or 3 beds, each instead of 47 crammed together. Daniel's story had spread far beyond human space. News channels across the Galactic Concord had picked it up. The image of a human soldier in a homemade red suit, surrounded by crying alien children, had touched something in species that had never celebrated Christmas. Donations poured in. Credits, supplies, building materials, volunteers. The Concord government, embarrassed by the attention, increased the station's funding by 300%. But the biggest change was not the building. 23 of the 47 children had found families. Pip was the first. Corporal Amara Osei and her wife had adopted him within 2 months of that Christmas. They sent Daniel pictures every week. Pip starting school, Pip learning to swim, Pip sleeping in his blue blanket that he still refused to give up. Other families followed. Human families, mostly, but also Bravani and Tessari and species Daniel had never met. They had seen the story. They had been moved by it. And they had opened their homes. Daniel returned to Rilvan Station on the second Christmas Eve. He was not wearing a military uniform anymore. He had resigned 6 months after that first Christmas. The paperwork had been easy. The decision had been even easier. He now ran something called Operation Gift Drop. It was a small organization that coordinated Christmas celebrations for orphanages across the outer territories. They had reached 12 stations in their first year. Next year, they planned for 50. Sally worked for him. She was 17 now, almost 18. She handled communications, reaching out to other orphanages, collecting wish lists, coordinating volunteers. She was good at it. She understood what those children needed because she had needed it herself. "The decorations are up in the common room," she told Daniel as he walked through the station. "We have 32 volunteers this year, and the presents arrived yesterday." "How many kids this year?" 12. The rest found homes. Sally smiled. It was no longer small or fragile. It was full and bright. "Vin's family is coming to visit tomorrow. They want to celebrate with everyone." Vin, the silent boy who had not spoken for 8 months. He lived with a Tessari couple now, on a quiet colony world with lots of space to run. He still carried Flopsy everywhere, but he talked constantly. His new parents joked that they could not get him to stop. Daniel walked through the station, greeting children and volunteers. The common room looked better than ever. Real lights hung from the ceiling. A proper tree stood in the corner, decorated with ornaments made by tiny hands. Presents filled the space beneath. It was perfect. It was exactly what Christmas should be. A commotion near the entrance caught his attention. Someone new had arrived. Daniel walked over and found Administrator Yali's standing with a tiny Bravani girl. The child could not have been older than 4. She clutched a torn blanket and stared at the floor. Found her in a wrecked transport ship, Yali's explained quietly. Soy survivor. No family. No records. She hasn't spoken since we picked her up. Daniel knelt down to the little girl's level. She flinched, but did not run. Hi there, he said softly. Welcome to Rilvan Station. The girl did not respond. Her eyes stayed fixed on the ground. Other children began to gather around. They remember being new. They remember being scared. One by one, they moved closer. Sally pushed through the group and knelt beside Daniel. She spoke to the little girl in soft Bravani, words that Daniel did not understand. Then she switched to common tone. Don't be scared, Sally said. You're safe now. This place is special. Humans have this thing called Christmas. They give presents to children just because they exist. And there's a man named Daniel who makes sure no kid gets forgotten. The little girl finally looked up. Her eyes moved past Sally to Daniel, then past Daniel to the common room behind him, filled with lights and decorations and wrapped presents. Are you Santa? She asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Daniel smiled. He thought about everything that had happened since that first supply run. The crying children, the cold rooms, the message that had spread across the stars, the families that had formed, the lives that had changed. Santa's not real, he said gently. Not the way the stories say, but the idea of Santa is real. The idea that someone out there cares about you, that someone will come when you need help, that strangers can become family. He reached out his hand. The little girl looked at it for a long moment. Then, slowly she took it. I'm Daniel, he said, and I promise you from now on, someone will always come. The other children cheered. They surrounded the new arrival, welcoming her into their strange little family. Sally guided her toward the tree, showing her the presents, explaining how tomorrow would work. Daniel stood and watched. 1 year ago, he had been a soldier who had forgotten why he joined the service. 1 year ago, he had heard children crying and almost walked away. Now he knew his purpose. He looked up at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, more children waited. More stations needed help. More dreams needed to come true. He had work to do, and he could not wait to start the end.